Hey guys, welcome into the 14. I'm Nick Cole, and we're breaking down the Week 5 SEC football action from a betting perspective. Today, we're talking about the UConn Huskies visiting the Vanderbilt Commodores on Saturday night at 7 p.m. Eastern at Vanderbilt Stadium in Nashville. This game is going to be aired on ESPNU. From a betting perspective, this game opened as Vanderbilt minus 14, and the Commodores are now a 14.5-point favorite as of Thursday. The over-under moved from 48.5 on open on Sunday all the way up to 52. Bringing in our betting analyst, Christopher Smith. Christopher, is this the game that has you the most excited about college football this week?
Hey, if you can make money on it, it's good with me. And, I know that being a beat writer doesn't make you a fan of a team. I'm not here to suggest that, but you did cover Vanderbilt and you do live in Nashville and you've auto-faded Vanderbilt every game this season. So I'm interested to see if you're going to finally back the doors in this game. But first, why don't you tell us about the weather and get into Nick's news and notes?
Sure. So let's start with the weather on this game. The kickoff, we should be in the 70s here in Nashville. Miles per hour wind wise, about 5 to 8. And we've got a 30 to 50% chance of showers. So that rain shouldn't be anything to be too worried about. On the injury side of things, Vanderbilt's actually got a little bit of good news in that the list has shrunk considerably. They were missing starting tight end Ben Bresnahan with a lower body injury for the last few weeks. And it sounds like Clark Lee said he's back into the mix and looks to be on track to play on Saturday, giving them another offensive weapon there. And then Deshaun Jerkins continually shows up on the injury report here the last few weeks, but he's been able to make a go of it with the injury he's been playing through. And then other than that, UConn's pretty clean for what they have available. Not many injury concerns there. On the news and note side of this, the question that I have for Vanderbilt is, how do you win in these conditions? They just lost a game 62-0 against Georgia in their SEC opener, which was a really humbling, this is where we're at as a program situation where they fell behind 35-0 in the first quarter. Georgia started playing backups well before halftime. And it was, more than anything, I don't know that you can do anything but say this is a complete from the foundation rebuild for Clark Lee coming out of that game. Now, that's not to excuse him and his coaching staff for losing 62-0. You still got to figure out a way to make the most of what you have. But Vanderbilt's now lost 21 of its last 25 games, and that includes being 1-17 in its last 18 conference games. And they're winless in their last 8 home games. Coming out of that game, perhaps Clark Lee's words are most telling when he talked about how his biggest job right now is getting this team past its traumatized past. When you're talking about a traumatized past going into week 5 against a winless team, that's a problem. So it makes me wonder, how do you beat anybody by 14 plus points? And the answer is you play UConn, most likely. That team may be even more traumatized. They're the only 5-loss team in the country. They're 0-5. They got that extra loss in week 0. They've lost 31 of their last 34 games dating back to 2017. And they didn't even play at all in 2020. They just sat that season out. Oh, and their head coach, Randy Edsall, has already resigned. He said he was going to retire after the season. And that was, in week 2. And the Huskies administration said, yeah, why don't you just go ahead and take that early retirement and leave now. So they're playing with an interim coach. They've lost 5 games in a row. They've been shut out twice by Fresno and Purdue. And you wonder, do they have what it takes to even win a game at all this season? The answer almost was yes last week. A side note, they lost 24-22 to Wyoming, which for UConn has to be considered a win. Certainly for bettors, it was considered a win backing UConn. They came down to the end of that game with the Cowboys looking for their first victory. And then the last thing I'd point out before I hand it over to Christopher is I'm just wondering which offense we're going to see from Vanderbilt, and because that may actually determine the outcome of this football game. Vanderbilt has sandwiched 2 really crappy offensive performances, a 3-point output against ETSU in week 1, and a shutout, really less than 100 yards type of performance against Georgia in week 4. Those are your 2 bad ones that are the bun, right? And then in the middle, they had actually 2 pretty decent performances. They beat Colorado State, had 342 yards of offense, but really figured something out late in the first half of that game and had a very productive second half. And they carried that into their week 3 game against Stanford, which they lost, but they scored 23 points, had 398 yards of offense, and looked pretty competent offensively. So I can't get a read on which of these is the real Vanderbilt. And Christopher, I think the key to betting this game is figuring out which one of those teams shows up on Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, most SEC teams treat this sort of type of opponent as a way to get healthy, a way to play some of your depth, and a way to be as vanilla as humanly possible so that your upcoming SEC opponents don't know what to prepare for. But Vanderbilt should treat this as their Super Bowl. I mean, who are they going to even compete with for the rest of the season? South Carolina, maybe? This is their chance to have some fun, to succeed, to, when Clark Lee sits there at the team banquet at the end of the season and shows the highlights. This is their little modicum of hope chance to have at least something on that highlight reel worth even putting together. So, you look at Vanderbilt's metrics and you look at the advanced stats, and it's not much, but the one area where they're not in triple digits is their pass defense. It's 87th in EPA per snap. Now, you look at UConn, and UConn's rush defense is 101st, or their rush offense is 101st in EPA, and their pass offense is 126th, nearly dead last. So UConn did score 22 against Army and 21 against Wyoming, but in those games, they threw for just 4.3 yards per attempt with 1 touchdown and 2 interceptions. So you got to think, if you're Vanderbilt, what you're going to hang your hat on in this entire game is your pass defense is capable of shutting down UConn's offense. Now, of course, you mentioned, UConn playing probably their best game in at least two or 3 years. And, their head coach, interim coach right now against Wyoming. But Wyoming had a horrible, horrible offense in terms of when you're trying to play against UConn. They don't try to throw. They're very predictable. They only run the ball. UConn gave up 45 to Fresno State, 49 to Purdue, 52 to Army. And you mentioned Vanderbilt did gain about 400 yards against Stanford just 2 weeks ago. That's a much better defense than what UConn runs out there. So I'm not fooled at all about the Wyoming game last week. I do think that Vanderbilt will have some opportunities to make some plays on offense. Now, I'm not expecting them to look like 2019 LSU out there, but there will be some opportunities for some yards and some points there. So, Nick, who are you betting on in this game, and tell me why?
Look, I totally understand that UConn is very bad, like historically type of bad. And Vandy should win this game and probably will win this game. I'm going to throw that out there. But I don't know that I can back a team that admittedly says it doesn't know how to win and is traumatized by the recent past and those kind of things to beat anybody by more than 2 touchdowns. So at this 14.5, it's less about me thinking Vanderbilt can win this game and more about me thinking that Vanderbilt isn't prepared right now mentally to blow anybody out. So give me UConn plus 14.5 in this game. And then I also want to take the under of 52 just because I don't trust either of these offenses to get anything done consistently to the point where we feel like they're going to be playing in the 30s, either one of them. So give me UConn and give me the under. How about you?
Well, Nick, I beat you by 4 games in our last week, and my best bets are crushing yours. So I'll give you a chance here. Give you a chance. I really hate having to pick a side in this game. I think the line is just about right. UConn's covered back-to-back spreads, actually. But I'm going to give you a chance. I will take Vanderbilt minus 14.5 here, and I'll go under 52. Vanderbilt's actually the better football team for once. I don't know if you could even say that against East Tennessee State earlier this season, but in this game, yes. So I'll take Vanderbilt and the under. For Nick Cole, I'm Christopher Smith for the 14, and we'll talk to you next week.